one guy literally threw a CD onto the desk of the receptionist and said, "I got 10 songs here that are better than anything on the radio." Needless to say, he did not get a meeting. He did not get his songs listened to. All right, everybody, welcome. I'm in the SongTown studio with Clay Mills virtually,
Woo! Yeah.
and I'm gonna surprise Clay with a topic today. I think this is gonna be a fun one to talk about, Clay. I'm excited about it.
Okay,
So,
well, I can't wait to hear, and by the way, I think the reason we do this surprise topics on each other is because we spend our careers co-writing, and we show up in a writing room, somebody throws out an idea, and then you riff on it. That's what we do as songwriters. So we
yeah.
kinda follow that, into our podcast here. So he's gonna throw out an idea, and I'm going to try not to stumble over my words and come up with something that makes sense and will move people.
There you go. Yeah, we also like to just get the other person's gut reaction to the topic, as opposed
Yeah.
to giving them all night to think about an outline for what they want to talk about. So, and we do most things in our life by the seat of our pants, which
Oh, yeah.
that also supports this idea.
Definitely.
So, what I want to talk about today, Clay, is toxic traits of songwriters.
Oh,
I want to talk about things like attitudes and beliefs that don't serve a songwriter well. That
so
you and I have seen.
you're not talking about too much tequila drinking.
Not at all.
Oh,
No,
okay, I got you.
not at all. No, I mean, and I'll kick it off and then you can chime in. But I think one of the things I've seen has been a killer to some people is arrogance. I mean, people coming in. I don't know how many times I've seen somebody come into my publishing company and go. One guy literally threw a CD onto the desk of the receptionist and said, "I got 10 songs here that are better than anything on the radio." And needless to say, he did not get a meeting. He did not get his songs listened to because he was an arrogant jerk, and
Yeah.
and he was not the kind of person anybody wanted to help. I mean, someone coming in like that, like, just storming in and throwing their CD and making that kind of statement is going to get kicked out at best, you know? So, I mean, I think arrogance is something you just don't need, the biggest songwriters I know, but the Ashley Gorleys and others I could name are humble people, they're grateful for their success and they're not going out there being arrogant to people just because they have a track record even. So I think
Yeah.
it's super important not to come across with that kind of attitude and to be humble and not to be arrogant.
Yeah, and how many times have we seen arrogant people on the way up? People will work with them because 'cause they're on their way up. But as soon as they start stumbling in their career and they're on the way down, nobody wants to work with them because they
Exactly.
were jerks.
Yep.
Nobody wants to put up with that.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
so now you want me to think of a toxic thing. I would say one thing that, especially if in the pro world where you've got to co-write and work with other people, are people that come in to a writing session and they're not in tune with the room. They just have like blinders on. I want to do this and this and this. And I'll show you an example of what I mean. And this is not my normal MO. I'm a pretty go with the flow kind of person because I like to read the room. But I came in to write with a young artist and they had a record deal on Warner Brothers. And I was excited to write with them, and I threw out this idea from something they said in the room, um, about their morning, and it triggered a title that I had, on my computer, and I launched into it, and I mean, it was one of the best ideas. I just knew it. I could see the whole song coming together. They were like, "Nah, I don't like it. I got this other thing I want to do." I literally text my song plugger and say, "Come into the room, the writing room." He was in an office down the hall. I said, "Please come into the writing room and say that I have an emergency and get me out of this right." No, I did this. I called a buddy who was down the street. He came over and we wrote the title that I had, because I saw this was brilliant. Like it was,
Mhm.
I could see the way it was going, and we wrote the song and we got it cut. That writer, his career never took off. He never wrote a hit song, and I'm not saying this to bash, but I'm saying because looking back on it, we all know as pro writers, when someone in the room is really excited and is hot and is on a roll, you don't stop that.
Yeah.
You give somebody rope. Some days you're on the roll, some days your co-writer's on the roll. You have to read the energy in the room and go, okay, this person's on a roll here. We got to go with this. And me as a writer, I mean, my career depended on a good song. I was not going to sit there and throw away an idea that I saw in my head finished already and knew that it was going to be something that somebody would want to cut. I
Yeah.
was not going to ruin that day by letting this person throw up a roadblock to success in a way.
Yeah. So
And
you
I
had
don't
a
know if I've never told that story, and I don't feel great about it, because I don't, but man, I mean, you've got to respect that energy in the room.
Yeah. Yeah, having blinders on to what's happening in the room can be a real toxic trait for people. It
Yeah,
just you've gotta pay attention to what's going to benefit everybody in the room too, not just what you're wanting to do today or your particular mission. I've got another one. I think stubbornness
mm,
is a toxic trait for songwriters because I don't know how many times I've seen people fight for something that everybody in the room's telling them that's not working, and they're just arguing for it. No, it's a great line. It's a great line. That kind of thing. And one time it reminds me of years ago. My first publisher was a Hall of Fame songwriter, and he was such a kind person. He would take time for anybody that came in off the street. So this guy came in and said, "Hey, I've got this song I think is awesome. Would you listen to it?" And he listened to it, even though the guy was a little bit arrogant. And he told him, "Hey, I think your first verse and your chorus are killer, but if you would need to take this second verse in a different direction, or nobody's going to cut it." And this guy goes, "Well, everybody likes it back home, and he just won't listen." And
right,
so finally, my publisher said, "Well, I would just go back home and play it for everybody if they love it, because it's not going to work in Nashville."
right,
And so I think just that stubbornness and that can come out in several ways. It can come out in an unwillingness to learn. It can come out in an unwillingness to listen to feedback. When someone's giving you feedback, they're taking time out of their life to try to help you, and to argue with them, whether or not you think they're right. But to argue with them is pointless. They're,
right.
they're trying to be helpful, and so I think just making sure that you're not being stubborn, and that you're really open to learning, and that you because none of us have all this figured out. There's times Clay will give feedback on a song I wrote with one of our writers, and I go, "Oh man, I didn't think about that. You're right." That kind of thing. So we've got to always be open and willing to learn.
Absolutely. That openness. And I was thinking about your story. It might sound harsh when your publisher said, well, take it back home and let everybody love it. That the reason he gave that harsh response was because the person gave him a harsh response. And it's kind of like a chain reaction.
Yeah.
So then nobody is open, where if that writer had gone, I haven't thought of that. Let me consider that,
Mhm.
and it would have diffused the whole situation. He would have been grateful. Maybe your publisher goes, this person has some potential. Maybe I can help him get better. Or, you just don't know what can come of any situation when you have the right attitude.
Yeah. One other one I wanted to throw out too is kind of being a know-it-all. We've both written with people that just kind of thought they knew more than anybody else in the room. I had a guy one time basically tell me, "Shut up and follow me to the bank." He didn't say it quite that way, but he was like, "Dude, you don't want to say that. Just
Right.
basically just listen. Here's what we want to do, you know, and that kind of know-it-all attitude is just not gonna, you know. I never wrote with him again, even though he was a big hit writer, because it's life's too short for that, you know.
Right.
And you can
Well, that
quickly.
did that attitude, he was a big hit writer, but, like I said, eventually things come back down. I know that that person was famous for that phrase. I know a famous artist that told me because of that reason, he would never write with this person. So,
Yeah,
the music business is a small business.
yeah,
If you think you know it all and you're difficult to work with, you're just gonna close doors, and it doesn't matter if you are a hit writer or if you're just starting out. Um, Confidence is not knowing it all. And so
right,
I think there's a big difference in being confident and being a know-it-all. Hey,
absolutely.
check out the show notes below. We have songwriting books on melody, on lyrics, on co-writing. And co-writing, I'm often surprised we sell a ton of books on melody and lyric writing on Amazon. I mean, off the
Yeah,
chart. The co-writing book, it's the only co-writing book for songwriters in existence written by pro songwriters. I've never even seen a book on co-writing on Amazon
I haven't
other
either.
than that book. And to me, it's one of the biggest things you can do for yourself as a songwriter if you're wanting to have a career or if you're just wanting to have someone cut your song and put it out, or if you just want to have fun writing with your buddies. To me, the co-writing is probably one of the biggest things you need to master, but it's kinda like love, everyone wants to fall in love, but nobody wants to study love. But,
That's right.
do yourself a favor, check out this book because it is really the key to opening doors in the music business is co-writing, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I was telling people yesterday in our clubhouse room that, you know, every new person you write with is a new business partner, and the more business partners you have out there working your music, the
Yeah,
greater your chances of success. You know, so co-writing is just a huge factor for both of us have succeeded because we've co-written. You know, I don't think either of us have had a hit that we wrote by ourselves, so we're huge
yeah,
fans of co-writing.
awesome. We'll see you next time.
Yep. See you next Tuesday. Cheers.